Into dense, sprawling forest, alive with the morning chorus of birds, a small rustle betrayed a disturbance. Little Cairo, a cub from the mighty Valoran pride, had wandered too far. Curiosity, that insatiable itch of youth, had pulled him past the familiar scent-marked trails of his parents and deep into the unknown. He paused, his small ears twitching at every snapping twig, at every whisper of the wind through the towering trees. The ancient sentinels loomed over him, their leaves rustling with secrets he couldn't yet understand. Shadows danced like phantoms across the forest floor, and Cairo's wide amber eyes flickered between fear and a budding excitement. He had never been this far from home. The comforting, familiar sense of his family had faded, replaced by a symphony of strange smells that made his nose quiver. Then he heard it, a soft, melodic sound, completely alien to the growls and chirps he knew. Cautiously, he crept closer, his paws making no sound on the damp earth. Through a curtain of ferns, he saw it, a creature unlike any he had ever witnessed. It stood on two legs, mostly hairless, and wore a strange, colorful covering over its body. Its hands moved with a peculiar grace, performing actions that made no sense to him. But it didn't roar, it didn't bare its teeth. Instead, it knelt down, its movement slow and deliberate, and extended a flat, shimmering object that caught the dappled sunlight. Cairo, instinctively wary, tilted his head. The creature's eyes were wide, and they held a mix of awe and gentleness. There was no threat in its posture, no malice in its gaze, a profound curiosity that mirrored his own. After a long moment of hesitation, the small cub inched forward, his heart thumping against his ribs. The creature let out a soft laugh, a sound that wasn't frightening but was, in a strange way, comforting. It vibrated through the air, like a gentle purr. Minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity for Cairo. He finally reached the creature's hand and sniffed it, then pawed gently at the soft, smooth object it held. The human, as Cairo would later learn they were called, offered him food. Warrowed aromatic morsels that smelled nothing like the raw, warm meat he was used to. But hunger, a persistent gnawing in his belly, urged him on. With careful, tentative nibbles, he tasted the offering. The flavors were strange, bursting on his tongue in ways he'd never experienced, but they were deeply satisfying. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows that stretched and shrank, a heavy fatigue settled over him. Cairo had wandered far, and his tiny legs, built for short bursts of play, could carry him no more. The human seemed to understand his exhaustion without a word being exchanged. With impossibly gentle arms, it scooped him up. The sensation was foreign, but not unpleasant. It carried him to a soft patch of sun-drenched moss beneath a large, ancient tree. The warmth of the sun on his fur, the human's soft, continuous humming, and the sheer comfort of its presence lulled Cairo into a deep, unguarded sleep. A trust he had never given to any being outside his own pride. Back in the den, panic was setting in. Cairo's parents, the fearless apex hunters of this domain, were frantic. They paced restlessly, their powerful noses twitching, trying to pick up the fading traces of their cub scent. Every instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong. They began to track, their calls low and urgent, a sound that sent shivers through the other forest dwellers. The trail was faint, but their desperation fueled them. Finally, the scent grew stronger, but it was mingled with something utterly unfamiliar, something alien. And then, in a small, sunlit clearing, they found him. Cairo was sprawled in the grass, his small chest rising and falling in the steady rhythm of sleep. A faint, contented smile seemed to curl at the edges of his mouth, and sitting nearby, a silent, watchful guardian, was the human. The parents' approach, low growls rumbling deep in their chests. It wasn't a sound of aggression, but of profound, protective relief. Their massive forms cast long shadows over the clearing as they advanced. At the sound, Cairo stood, blinking his sleepy amber eyes. He immediately recognized the familiar, powerful sense of his mother and father. The human, understanding that its role was over, slowly backed away, raising its hands in a universal gesture of peace. Cairo's parents circled their cub, nuzzling him, their warm, familiar scents enveloping him like a protective shield. They licked his fur, checking him for any injury, their anxieties slowly melting away. Cairo rolled over, let out a big yawn, and stretched his little limbs, the strange adventure already fading from his mind like a passing dream. The human gave one last soft laugh from the edge of the clearing and then retreated into the shadows of the forest, disappearing as mysteriously as it had appeared. The apex cub had ventured into the unknown, encountered a being unlike any he could have imagined, and returned, not with scars, but with a full belly and a memory of unexpected kindness. The forest seemed to sigh in relief, the wind rustling through the leaves as if whispering a quiet lesson. That curiosity could be dangerous, but it could also lead to wonders. And sometimes, even the fiercest of cubs could find comfort in the most unlikely of places. Cairo curled up against his mother's warm flank, his eyelids heavy, already dreaming of strange, gentle hands and soft, humming voices, secure in the knowledge that no matter how far he might wander, the forest and his family would always be there to protect him. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. We'll see you in the next video.